Hello, good evening. I'm Renee Barrio, Head of Curatorial Affairs here at the McNay, and it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you here tonight for our Artists Looking at Art presentation. And welcome to Dan Guerrero, our featured artist, and also one of my coworkers here at the McNay. We're going to talk a little more about that in a minute. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our program, Artists Looking at Art has been around as a program at the McNay, I think about 20 years now. And it's really a way for us to connect with the community of artists in San Antonio. Each year we present the works of two artists in our galleries and do a program like this, a conversation with them. And it's really a way to explore the work of artists who live among us and that we may not be as familiar with, but who are doing some really great work. So welcome, Dan. I think you might be on mute. Are you?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Perfect. Great.
Okay.
Great. So Dan is sitting in the McNay's Oppenheimer galleries where his three paintings are installed. And let's just jump in and let's just let's introduce yourself, and why don't you tell us where you're from and a little about your background and how you got to here, this place now.
Okay, sure. My name's Dan Guerrero. I grew up in San Antonio, native San Antonian. Grew up on the South Side and went to Catholic school, St. James, growing up for elementary school. And then for high school, went to St. Anthony's, which is fairly close to here. After high school, I went to UTSA for a few years, started out in the architecture program, then moved to the design program, and finally ended up in the art program, which I really enjoyed. And right about that time, I got a full-time job, always with the intent of going back to school, and somehow it was 18 years passed, moved to Austin, moved back, had my own furniture business, making custom furniture, and then moved back to San Antonio, went back to UTSA, graduated in 2016. I still had like a year and a half to complete, but completed that in 2016, and then I got a call from my friend Ruben, who's the head preparator here, and wanted to know if I wanted to fill in for somebody for a few months. And here it is 4 years later, and I'm still here.
Yeah, you've had a variety of a couple of different jobs here, right? Is that where you came in to be a preparator? So you were working on the installation crew, you hung exhibitions, you worked the artworks, you built things. I know you constructed a lot of things for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was the fabricator for the most part, but as preparator here, you have to wear a lot of different hats. So yes, hanging artwork, caring for artwork, doing installations. And so, yes, so was in that role for 3 years.
And then what do you do now?
Now I'm the associate registrar, which is kind of caretaker / babysitter for the permanent collection here at the museum. A lot of cataloging, a lot of image requests, a lot of research, but very satisfying, and a very satisfying move from being a preparator to now associate registrar. And yeah, it's been great.
And in your role as a registrar, you get to see a lot of art every day up close, impersonal. So I imagine that would influence your own work.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing things from being here in the Oppenheimer Gallery, where there's Renaissance works, to seeing, cutting edge, more contemporary things. That mix has been great, and absolutely keeps you on your toes and keeps you aware of what's going on in the art world at large, for sure.
Now, you're typically kind of behind the scenes as a preparator. You were out of the galleries when the show opened. As a registrar, you're kind of behind the scenes working with the artwork. How now you're like front and center here with your art, and how does that feel with being sort of like the focused artist of the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I haven't done a lot of interviews or even really talking about my artwork for the most part, so it's kind of a new experience. But yeah, it's great.
Now, I know we're going to talk about the specific paintings that we're showing, and I think they're, for the most part, recent paintings. Am I correct?
Yeah, in the last 5 years, yeah.
Okay, but we also want to look kind of go back in your history and take a look at sort of how you got to this point, right?
Yes,
But I do want to mention that you requested to have your paintings hanging in the Oppenheimer Gallery. Is that right?
that's correct. Yes, well, it was my ideal for sure.
And can you just tell us a little about that context? What prompted you to want your paintings to hang in these on these historical panels and in with this more kind of historical work?
Sure. I mean, I've always enjoyed Renaissance art. I've always enjoyed the kind of technical aspect of it. You know, everything from like egg tempera to like these finely rendered oil paintings have always been amazing to me and a point of reference and something to reach for. And I think this gallery also has very heavy on figurative art. And so since that's kind of what I've concentrated on since I've been trying to be an artist, I thought it was an appropriate place. Also, just the backdrop of these carved panels is just amazing, and having that as a backdrop, I don't take that lightly, having my paintings on this Renaissance screen. So yeah, it's great.
Thank you. And I know we have a portfolio of images to look at and give a little bit of your history. So why don't we go to the images that and take a look at sort of where you came from that led you to this point.
Sure.
And I think, Kate, you're going to bring up the images, right? Right. So just for the sake of like we're positioning us, this is 2021. Where are we here? What we're looking at? How far back are we going?
We're going back pretty far. This is shortly after coming into the art program at UTSA. So this is, let's see, probably 1990 or so, 91.
Mm-hmm.
And very drawing heavy at this point. Drawing's been something that I've always kind of hung my hat on and been very comfortable with, you know, drawing as a kid, and then coming up through the years, I've just always loved to draw, and they used to have a drawing program at UTSA when I was in the program, and then after coming back 18 years later, I think they had done away with it. But I think they actually reinstated it recently again. So you can concentrate in drawing again as a BFA.
And these look really beautiful drawings. So look, your ability to render is very precise, and your sense of color is really quite wonderful.
Well,
What have inspired something like this? I mean, I was 30 years ago, so maybe you're not less, but.
No, sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Trying to get into my head 30 years ago, that's a neat trick. But I've always had this thing about hands and drawing hands. And I think, you know, growing up, people are always like, oh, if you could draw hands with the human body, you know, you're halfway there to being able to render anything. And so I think just the idea of being able to do that was satisfying for me. But also at this time, with the image on the right, this is a diptych and they do go together. But at the time, I was working for a company that did medical illustration. And so in doing some of that, it was obviously informing my work, and the title Life and Death, I mean, pretty much this idea of activity and things that you do with your hands, and always in motion, representing life, and then it's just kind of finality of death and this cadaver with maybe some possibility of the future, with the kind of chrysalis pointing at his forehead and this kind of slight glow of whether it's life fading or something coming back to life, I think was kind of the point of this drawing.
Could you see the next drawing image, please? Is it around the same time?
Yes, still around the same time. I was really interested in technical drawing, and my sister introduced me to silver point, or the art of silver point, drawing with silver wire on a prepared board. And I really liked the technical aspect of it, the idea that you can't erase once you've made a mark. Also, you know, there's a, a real kind of OCD quality about it in this kind of constant, you know, back and forth mark making.
Could you just explain for a minute what silver point is?
Yeah, so before the advent of lead, artists used to use silver to make their drawings. And so they would prepare a panel with gesso that had like marble dust or calcium carbonate in it. And so it provides this kind of receptive surface for the silver. So when you draw with the silver or drag the silver wire across this prepared panel, it leaves a mark like graphite. But once you put your mark down, you can't erase it. There's ways to kind of get around that, but you can always tell if it's been messed with. Not being able to erase it appealed to me. Also, after a while, the silver starts to take on a patina, so it gets kind of a bronzy kind of appearance to it. It goes on real silvery gray, but then after a while, after it starts to patina, it takes on this bronze color that's really very satisfying. And you can also draw with you could actually draw with any metal, which comes into one of my later drawings as well. But you can have some kind of tonality differences depending on what kind of metal you're using. You can use 24 karat gold, you can use platinum, and those metals either don't patina or patina at a different rate. And so mixing these metals, you can kind of have these subtle color changes in your drawing.
Okay, the next image, please. So did you have your parents artists? Did you have artists in your family? What kind of are you the first one in your family to be an artist?
No, it's funny. My sister was an amazing draftsman from an early age. And so that always dissuaded me from the thought of being an artist, just because I thought, well, she's the artist of the family and I'll just have to do something else. But yeah, she was and still is a great drafts person. And she has her own art practice and jewelry making business. And
Is she in San Antonio?
Yes, she is. Patricia Guerrero. And yeah, she's great. And we kind of bounced ideas off each other. And yeah, so my sister was artistic. My dad was always very crafty, is still, woodworking was a big part of what he did when I was younger and kind of instilled this sense of craft in me. My mother was artistic in a way, and I think they always had like really good handwriting, and that always appealed to me too. This idea of having like good print and good handwriting, and that kind of informed some things too, in that I started to get interested in calligraphy, and that's always been something that I've been interested in also since I was a kid.
Is this print we're looking at from about the same period back?
This is from about the same period. It's a terrible image, but it's like a caterpillar in a window. Underneath, it was just kind of this blank, kind of almost tomb-like space. And this through the window, you see these a leafed branch and a bare branch. And the reason I included this print is just because at this time at UTSA in the printmaking program, Dennis Olson was the head printmaker there, and I was just very happy to have studied with him for at least a couple of semesters, and that was great.
Can you the next image, please? This is really hard to see, but what I'm seeing is it looks like a male figure in profile, a drawing, right? Or
yeah, so
very
it's a
light.
figure study, and life drawing's always been a big part of what I do, and just going to life drawing sessions, hiring models,
Thank you.
employing friends to be models. I mean, it's always been just another big appeal of mine, the human body and the figure. And this is from just an open life drawing session at the Capini Academy, which isn't far from here either. They used to, and I believe they still do, open life drawing sessions. And this is a colored pencil on paper.
And I think we have a couple of other examples of your life drawings. Here's another beautiful drawing.
Yeah, this is, okay, go, sorry.
I was saying, were you always interested in realism or representation? And
yeah, very much so. I think, you know, when you're a kid, I think your teachers and your peers are always impressed when you can represent something and have it look like the thing you're trying to draw. And I think, you know, growing up, that's encouraged. And then, you know, later on, you know, in school, they try to drum that out of you, I think. And so I think I've always been interested in representationalism and representational type artists. So I've gone into forays of, you know, some abstraction. There's a few images later on in the slideshow that show that a little bit, but for the most part, yeah, always representationalism.
And these are all made from life. So you're drawing from a live model.
Yes, absolutely. This is an example of, it's kind of hard to see here, but of two different metals, the figures in silver and the backgrounds in platinum. And you can maybe see that subtle difference of how the silver has patinaed and become a little warmer, and the background has remained that kind of cool blue silver of platinum.
Next slide, please. Okay, so what is this? Is this a painting?
So, no, this is some of the woodworking that I was doing after I got my full-time job. Worked there for 8 years in that medical illustration company, and then moved to Austin for close to 16 years, I think it was. And so when I was in Austin, I worked for a graphic arts company for like a year, and then kind of the dot-com bust happened, and graphic artists were a dime a dozen. And so I kind of switched gears and started working for a woodworking company. And we built all kinds of things, wooden boats. We did some glass bottom boats for Ocarina Springs. We did solid wood furniture. We did anything and everything out of wood pretty much. And so I worked for a company for 4 or 5 years. And then after that, I had my own business making furniture, working for the governor's mansion and the Capitol building in Austin, doing some recreations for them, and doing some like historically accurate reproductions for them. And here's
so here you are making, is this your own business?
Here I am making some large doors, yes, some 10-foot doors. And usually out of some kind of cool wood. This is like sinker cypress wood, where they dredge up these waterlogged logs from a river and slab them out into boards and dry them out. And yeah, made these doors.
And I know when you worked when you worked as a preparator for the McNay, you did a lot of construction work. I know you did a lot of building of things. Are you still making furniture now?
So I've got a shop at home where I still do some things for the house and do some things for every once in a while for clients. But for the most part, it's hard to work in. And, you know, I tell somebody that if they want something, it's going to take them like a year to get it, just because of the other things I'm interested in. But
go to that next piece, the furniture. Is this a design of yours? Did you design and build?
Yes, this is a design build, and that's typically what I did for the furniture that I made. So this is a nightstand. It's got a solid front that's carved out, and the top tier that's open is on a Lazy Susan, so it rotates. So if you're in bed and you want to rotate it over and slip your book into that that niche, or you want to rotate it over to see your alarm clock, you can do that. And then it's got a magnet that snaps it back to center when you're done.
Nice. That's great. That's
Thanks.
great. Let's have the next image. So we're going to go back to your fine artwork. There's a question that came up in the chat about when you're talking about silver point and other kinds of metals. And if I recall from seeing silver point, it's kind of a wire that you use, like a silver wire. It's very delicate. And is it in a stylus or a pencil or any kind of holder, or you just hold the wire? How's that work?
No, absolutely. It's typically a gauge of wire, and you can get different gauges that are about the same dimension as you would use in a 5mm pencil or 7mm or 9mm automatic like drafting pencil. And so you can cut a piece of wire and slip it into the pencil as you would a piece of lead and use it like that. Yeah, all the way from like 3mm, and you can get larger gauge as well that you could put in like a drafting type pencil, like a clutch type pencil. And then you sharpen it to a point and dull it a tiny bit so that it doesn't dig into your ground. But you can get varying effects from the different gauge of wire that you're using. And I've even gone so far as to get like a bullion of silver, where if you're doing a large area, you could rub this flat bullion of silver on your prepared paper, and it's a different effect than kind of the hatching or line work that you might do. It kind of takes on the texture of the ground, but it's a little faster, and it's a different effect if so desired.
And can you just buy these at the art supply store, or where do you get them?
You can get it online, or you can get the wire at jewelry stores or jewelry supply stores. They sell 24 karat gold wire, they sell sterling silver wire, they sell platinum wire. And so, yeah, all that's fairly readily available. You can even, if you don't want to put it in a pencil, you can just get a dowel and kind of jam it into the end of it and use it like that.
So let's take a look at what we're looking at. Let's talk about what we're looking at. Go back one. Yes, here. Thank you. So we're another print. You did a lot of printmaking?
Not a whole lot, but I really enjoy the technical aspect of it. There's like an exacting quality to it, and I really enjoy that. I think if I had just like full access to a print studio, I'd do more of it, but you know, that's kind of the printmaker's dilemma, is like having a place to do these types of things. But this is an intaglio print, so etching on copper in 2 colors, which I think it's like a midnight blue and brown on the bottom. So you're inking the plate with 2 colors simultaneously, laying it down on the press and running it through, peeling your paper off, and hopefully, you know, you get this kind of separation with a slight kind of blend between them.
And its title is Death and the Maiden.
Mm-hmm.
So I see this theme happening here through, is that?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with it, but I mean, I think there's, you know, plenty of historical pieces that are about death, and especially Death and the Maiden, and these kind of vanitas pieces where, you know, they're speaking to the kind of fleeting nature of youth and beauty. And so I think that theme has always appealed to me. And so here, this kind of tree is looking kind of ominous, but that's not really representative of death. It's more the worm that is kind of in line with her hand there.
At the bottom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, thank you. Beautiful. Can we see the next images, please? I think so more life drawing.
Yeah, more life drawing. And the one on the left is a print lithograph, aluminum plate lithograph. And so, yeah, once again, I really enjoy printmaking, and this was kind of my foray into lithography. I'd done some stone lithographs in the past, but aluminum plate lithography is a little more satisfying because you can transport the plate with you and work on it versus having to work on a stone in a studio. And you know, lithograph stones are heavy and large and kind of prohibitive of carrying around with you. So
You see the next image, please?
just
So
more life
what,
drawing. I think just the idea that it's always been something that I can fall back on. And if I've been out of practice of something for a while, I feel like I can go into the studio or a life drawing session and kind of refresh my chops a little bit and kind of get back in the swing of things.
and I noticed the scale of these is pretty intimate. They're all very kind of a certain range. Is that a choice? Is that something you're interested in? This kind of tightness, this small.
I think so. I do like that idea of kind of being hunkered over a desk and kind of being consumed with this and just working on it for a while. And I think these things that are more kind of technical and take more time, maybe it's a transport issue too. Like you want to take it with you and work on it, or you're not always in the studio with it and wanting to spend time with it. So yeah, maybe it's also that idea of being able to transport it.
The next slide, please. You know
This
what? There's
is
interesting,
another,
and we'll. Oh, I was going to say, I see this, this surreal quality that sort of permeates all of this work, right? I mean, I'm sure
yeah, for
this is
sure.
that's what you kind of think about, right? So we're gonna, and I know that's gonna develop when we see some paintings later. So here we see this like pile of hands on fire. It looks like, right?
Yeah, the title of this is Small Arms Fire, and this is kind of a response to like school shootings and the kind of devaluation of human life, and especially children. Um, I think there were a lot of school shootings happening at that time, and um, this also plays into that metal point idea. I drew the arms with. I was telling you about how any metal will make a mark on a prepared ground. And what I did for this one is I folded a penny in half and stuck it in a piece of wood and used that to draw the arms, and kind of furthering that idea of devaluation, that they're drawn with a penny instead of like a precious metal, silver or gold or something. And so I'd like to kind of furthering that narrative about it.
And are most of the images that we've been looking at, most of these works, are they still in your possession, or have they gotten out into the world?
Some have gotten out into the world. You know, I've sold a few. I've had shows here and there in town, and I would say the majority of them are still in my possession. Yeah.
Next slide, please. So now we're going into paintings. Where are we chronologically? Where are we? What year about are we in?
Yeah, this is more recent. This is within the past 5 years, and this is after having moved back to San Antonio and becoming more a part of the art community here in San Antonio, which, you know, even though I grew up here, moving away for a little while and then coming back, I mean, it's like you never left. And the friends that you had before are still your friends now. And of course, the art community here is just amazing and very welcoming and giving of their time. And this was for a show about the missions here in San Antonio, and this was at Centro de Artes downtown, and dealing with the missions. This was about Mission San Jose, which I was tasked with producing a painting for by Rigo Luna, Presa House Gallery, and he left it pretty wide open, but he proposed the story of apparently there's a headless priest that wanders the grounds at San Jose Mission. And so I wanted to delve into that and this was my response to it.
And was that a story you knew, or was that new when you started doing
Yeah,
research
it
for
was a
these paintings?
story I knew. I think it's one of those San Antonio stories that sticks around and is kind of told from generation to generation. You know, like the ghost tracks, or you know, La Llorona, or things like that. So um, I was familiar with the story, but reading a little more about it, about how this headless priest entered the church during a service and um, uh, appeared to this priest, and he didn't appear to the parishioners, but the priest was so taken aback by what he saw that he invoked the name of Maria Purissima, which is one of the iterations of the Virgin Mary, and that's her floating above, protecting him and the congregation. And then he's got kind of like a scroll above him with kind of nonsensical line of text above it, almost as if he's like speaking in tongues or something. Um, and so here you could see, like I was talking before about being appreciative of Renaissance tropes like that, like these scrolls of words or letters, and employing that here.
Can we see the next painting? The next work? Yes.
Yeah, this was from my time at UTSA, and I just like this painting because this was just a weird thing that I came across on one of my walks. I could do a lot of you know, nature walks with the dogs, and when I lived in Austin, and here in the neighborhood I live in now, there's some green spaces where you can kind of walk with the dogs off leash and just kind of observe your surroundings. And this was just a weird entrails that I found on my walk, and it was just kind of laying there, almost as if somebody had placed it there. And it was obviously something from like a squirrel or something that a fox or a coyote had gotten to, but it was presented so neatly that I just felt the need to recreate it in a painting. And the colors were so super vibrant, and I really like presenting this on the floor too, like as I saw it, because it's more representative of how it was seen, and you kind of see the sky reflected in its highlights. It's not really super highlighted as you might see something if it were vertical. And so I just really appreciated the shape and the weirdness and the colors about it.
So I assume in the previous painting, you probably were from sketches that you made, right, of this kind of narrative you created, right?
Yes.
In this other painting, this next painting, did you photograph it and work from a photograph? How was your process?
Yeah, that's totally correct. Yeah, the previous painting was from kind of sketches that I scabbed together. I went to Mission San Jose and took photos of the interior, and kind of took some of the landmarks of it that would represent well without it being too cluttered, and then came up with the figures in space. And then this one, yeah, I don't really have a set way of working. So this, you know, I took a photo of it at the time and just used it as a reference point for recreating this one.
And then this is one of the three paintings that we're showing.
Mm-hmm.
And when was this made?
This is in the last 5 years. This is, yeah, a still life. It's kind of a funny nod to like American or British still life painters who did these kind of waterfowl paintings, like Alexander Pope, where they'd have kind of this victorious hunt kind of scene where there's a gun and a couple of dead pheasants or something. And I liked the idea of presenting these objects in kind of not so heroic way. I mean, this is kind of loosely based on the practice of like how foie gras is made. So the idea of this tongue-in-cheek idea of making this delicacy versus like going out and shooting something for sustenance.
Do you work on
And
one
so
painting at a time, or do you work on a series of things?
I try and work on multiple things at a time because somebody told me way back when, like when you work on one thing at a time, it becomes like this precious thing that you don't want to part with, and it becomes real hard to, uh, price it and think about it and kind of look at it objectively. And so I've kind of tried to take that to heart and work on uh, a few things at a time. But
And do you work primarily in your studio, or do you like work on location? Do you take your sketching and go out in the world and work?
yeah, I don't do a lot of on-site stuff. Most things are photography if I need something that is on-site. And so I'll typically work in my studio, either at a drafting table or an easel.
Can you see the next, please?
These were from UTSA, just trying to get back in the swing of things after not having been in school for a while, and doing, top one's like a large scale drawing, just kind of the evolution of man, kind of this dreamy beginning to this more kind of industrial, demolished state. And I want to say, yeah, this drawing's pretty long. It's like 10 feet long. So that was interesting working on that scale, because we had talked about earlier about, things being on a smaller scale. But it was fun working on that scale. The
And it's
other
the
two
most,
are hmm?
I think the most abstract we've seen you so far.
Yeah, I think so. Doing like some color transfers and like another surrealist device like decalcomania, where you're, transferring paint via a cup, like a sheet of glass or plexiglass that has paint on it, and then putting your paper down, peeling it up, and kind of enjoying the kind of unpredictable result, I think. Yeah.
Next slide, please. And we're going back to start. Have you ever applied any of your drawing or painting to your furniture?
No, but that's been a thought, the idea of making like a chest of drawers and then opening a drawer and there being a drawing on the bottom of the drawer, or making a table and there's, a painting on the underside of the table. These things aren't like immediately revealed or evident, but maybe that might have a clue, like maybe part of the painting drips down the leg of the table or something. So
I think you should do
yeah,
that.
there's been these ideas for sure, and parts of sketchbooks that have these things in them, but they have not seen the light of day yet.
So what are we looking at here?
This was produced after my mom died. This is a silver point drawing, diptych, of when I was a baby and my mom holding me, and it's called There There. Kind of that idea of consolation that parents give their kids when they're children, and when you're in a Hispanic family, also like sana sana, which is also that idea of there there, this comforting word that's repeated over and over. To kind of give comfort. And so, yeah, this was a therapeutic piece for me, and, outlines indicating kind of loss for the most part.
Mm-hmm. It's lovely. Next slide,
Thank
please.
you. Yeah, it's a little foray into abstraction.
Was that hard to do?
It was, because it's on a curved panel. And so this was kind of a start of something that I wanted to try and start doing, this idea of these curved wood panels that I'd create. So you'd bring a little bit of the woodworking into it, and then doing these paintings or drawings on them. But yes, working on a curve panel did provide a challenge. And then I thought after the fact, it was like, well, maybe I should have just done this flat and then applied it to the curve. But I think it was, while, I don't know how I feel about this piece, I think it was a good kind of learning experience and just something different.
It seems to me like a lot of your points of origin, a lot of your references, a lot of the things that you're depicting or looking at come from the real world or come from observation or come from the studio. Do things like dreams, nighttime dreams, do those kind of things influence your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of kind of those surrealist tricks play a big part in my work. Dreams, automatic drawing, things like that, transfers, rubbings, that kind of doing these things that don't have ultimately a predictable effect. I think, yeah, absolutely, those things definitely play a part.
See the next image, please. So more of this kind of symbolic abstraction, I call it.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. I mean, they're kind of figurative. The shapes on the bottom could be vaguely, reminiscent of like a quote bubble or a speech bubble with like a horizon in the background. So um, I kind of like that edge between something discernible and non-discernible. Like, is it that what I'm thinking? Is it what I'm thinking of, or is it not? Is it representational or not? I think, yeah, I like that idea too, of using that kind of half and half idea.
Next image, please. It's a color pencil drawing, right?
Yes, yeah, this is a pastel and colored pencil.
So now we're really getting into more surreal kind of.
Yeah, and I like that idea of playing with scale, tiny figures, huge birds, and then even huger fingers of possibly, larger people. So playing with that idea of scale, I think lends to a kind of a dreamlike quality and uncertainty. And so, yeah, kind of another surrealist trope, I think, that I like using.
It's typical in a conversation like this to ask an artist like what artists influence them, right? But rather than ask you that, what things in life influence you? What are you responding to?
Hmm. Um, well, I mean, uncertainty, of course. I mean, things, especially these days, I mean, everything is so uncertain. Science is moving at such a pace, technology is moving at such a pace. So I think, you know, things like that influence me. I think this drawing is kind of indicative of that, of like the idea of cloning, or making something from nothing, or taking cells from something and recreating something else. Um, I think those kinds of things interest me.
Hmm.
Um,
Next slide, please. So, so these circular drawings, the format of the circle, which is something we've
I
not tested before. Had you done that before? Or is this new?
I had not done that before, and I think just the desire to like work in a different format. I think it presented itself by something super innocuous, like getting a circular frame for free somewhere and having a desire to make a drawing that fit the frame. So I had done some silver point portraits before that. Were for an oval frame, but yeah, I liked this idea of a circular format, and yeah, I think it's effective. I think it makes a different kind of window versus a square or a rectangle, almost like like a peephole or something.
Next slide, please. So where are we? We're still in the last 10 years, 5 years?
Yeah, this is in the last 2 or 3 years. I had gotten kind of some feedback on this, and it was, some people had said it was like nostalgic or like somehow precious, but I really didn't see it that way at all. I saw it more as like, what is this bright light? Like, are they watching something, on TV that's producing this bright light? Are they looking out a window, something apocalyptic or something? And I think that's where I was going with this. And so,
Yeah, there's certainly an ambiguous quality as to what's happening in this, right? It looks calm and peaceful, but something tells me it's not.
right. So I think, yeah, playing with that uncertainty, as I have in some of the previous pieces, I think is another, device that I enjoy using.
Next slide, please. So here's one of the second of the 3 paintings that are presented at McNay. And I think for most people, this is probably the one that's the most difficult to decipher in a way, to kind of to deconstruct and try to figure out what's happening in this painting.
Okay.
The other one we'll talk about in a minute, and that's just pure surrealism. But this one, I think there's a narrative here, and the title is lending to that narrative, right?
For sure. So this painting is also about my mother and her passing, and so this is taken from a family photograph, circa like 1976 or so, as is told by those ginormous bell bottoms that I'm wearing. But recreating the figures in 3 dimensions and having me transition to a 2-dimensional figure and then just an outline, and using kind of the lines of the shirt to reinforce that degradation or change, essentially, that is becoming less clear. I think, it's about memories, how you remember things. And I'm kind of vaguely green in this photograph, or in this rendering, because I remember I was feeling sick that day too, so that plays into it. There's this hole in the wall behind my mom's face, which is just another device that I was using because it's vaguely halo-like, I think, and my idea of how saint-like my mother was, and so trying to reinforce that, and then this outline as well to the far left, also indicating somewhat kind of how maybe I was just a shell after her passing, and feeling that kind of emptiness about it.
Had you made work about your mother before she died?
No. Yeah, that's curious, because I don't know, I guess you always think you'll have this time to do these drawings and portraits and such, and you move out of town, and things happen, and then next thing you know, this huge amount of time has passed. And so, yeah, there's definitely that sense of regret, for sure.
Had you presented this painting in public before, or is this the first time?
No, this painting's been presented before. It was at UTSA, and then yeah, at Pressa House as well. So it's gotten some views, but yeah, I like the idea of it being here and being exposed to a whole new audience. And, yeah.
Here we you're another baby.
Yeah,
is this you again?
This is me again. So 52 years ago, loosely. And I, I like this idea of using titles as kind of reinforcing the subject, and a visual and verbal pun. This one's called "Baby on Board," and it's you know quite literally a baby painted on a wooden board. There's a little bit of narrative to it in that the board that I used is spalted pecan, and spalting is like a fungus that can overtake a tree and kind of degrades it, and can degrade it to the point of killing the tree. And so kind of this idea of overpopulation, I think. But
Is
in
it
these paintings as well, I think going back to the Renaissance idea is that there's always like hand gestures. Hand gestures were always big in Renaissance paintings, whether they're pointing to somebody or gesturing, or Jesus's hands always played a big part in telling a story. And I think being Catholic as well, I've been exposed to a lot of that kind of sensitivity of hands, and so I always try and have the hands kind of telling a story or playing a part in each piece.
I was going to ask, is it important that your viewer know this is a self-portrait?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the biggest impact of it is just the pun. I mean, I liked it, baby on board, and there you go.
So the next image, we're getting close to our time. I just want to make sure we cover all of them.
Sure. This was from the past 5 years or so too, and just that, that idea of pun and Catholicism, kind of a mashup between Saturday morning cartoon commercials and Sunday morning mass. It's the Pillsbury Doughboy in place of Jesus, and this place is called He Is Risen. And so, yes, tongue in cheek, but there's some symbolism in it as well. Yeah, as Jesus, the idea of him turning his body into the bread of Christ and sharing it with the masses. I thought would be. I thought the Pillsbury Doughboy was a fitting stand-in for him.
Mm-hmm. Next slide. And then this is the third painting you're presenting at the McNay. So this is the one I said was definitely surreal, right? There's no question.
Yes. Yeah. So this is called Los Padrinos, and this is from another family photo, and this is truly my godparents. And in the original photo, they're holding me, but I wanted to stand in for a baby, something delicate and slimy, and I thought a snail was appropriate. So the snail is kind of an indicator of time, and the passage of time, and I used that symbol a lot in my pieces. And so this piece also kind of about gender roles in 1968. She's kind of rearing back and bearing the brunt of the weight, and he's kind of very delicately, bearing about 2% of the weight. And so the idea of women back then bearing the brunt of the weight of child rearing.
I'm not sure, is this the last image here? Thank you. So I had one more question for you, Dan. So your office is very close to the gallery where your work is being presented. So I'm assuming sometimes you've been in the gallery when we have visitors seeing your work. Have you like observed people observing your work, looking at your work? Have you kind of been hearing people talk about it? Are they curious with you?
Yeah, strangely enough, I've tried to stay away from it, and I'm not sure why that is, but just actually a couple of times that I've been here, the guard will have or knows that I'm the person that made the paintings, and so somebody will have just asked them about it, and so they'll point at me and say, that's the artist. And so they'll come over and talk to me and ask me about it and just ask me about some of the imagery and stuff. So yeah, that's been satisfying for sure.
Great. It looks like we covered most all the questions that came up in chat. I think we got everything. And I know that we're nearing very close to the end of our time. Was there anything else you wanted to share, Dan, with us about your work or about your practice?
Nothing's coming to mind, but yeah, maybe if you have any other questions or.
So
Yeah,
people who are kind of our viewers tonight or viewers, visitors to the gallery, if they want to know more about your work or to see it, where can you point them?
I've got an Instagram page. It's called Dan G Fine Art or Dang Fine Art, which works out well. I've also got a website, danielguerrerostudio.com. So yeah, those two outlets. I don't have any gallery shows coming up anytime soon, but yeah, hopefully sometime in the future that will be in the works.
Well, thank you, first of all, for sharing the work and letting us present it in the museum. It's just been very, over the last few years, we've been presenting a lot of work by staff, and it's just been great to sort of see the other side of people who, I know, and we all know for a certain way of working, but not this side. And really all of the things you shared tonight, how much you offered to us was really a treat. So really appreciate all of you things, and congratulations on these great successes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Renee. And yeah, thank you for agreeing to letting me show in this space. And yeah, it's been a real treat and a super pleasure. So thank you.
So everyone who's out there tonight, appreciate you joining us tonight, and look forward to more in our series of Artists Looking at Art. And have a great night. So thank you. Bye-bye.